The quiet of the night shift at Earth's deep space monitoring station was broken by a sudden, urgent beeping. Jack Miller, the lead communications officer, nearly spilled his coffee as he rushed to the main console. The computer screen flashed red, displaying a message that would change the course of human history. Unknown SIGNALTTCTE. This can't be right, Jack muttered, his fingers flying across the keyboard. The signal was clear and structured, definitely not natural. It repeated in a pattern that could only be artificial. Get General Roberts on the line. Now. Within hours, the United Earth Council had convened an emergency session. The signal was confirmed to be a distress call from deep space, from a previously unknown intelligent species. The translation algorithms suggest they're calling for help, explained Dr. Anna Torres, head of Sinolinguistics. They call themselves the Lumerians, and they're begging for assistance. Captain James Walker stood at attention as he received his orders directly from General Roberts. His exploration vessel, the Horizon, would be dispatched immediately to investigate the source of the signal. This is not a scientific mission anymore, Captain, the general said, his face grim. This is a humanitarian response. If someone out there is asking for help, humanity will answer. The Horizon, Earth's most advanced exploration ship, broke orbit that same day. Captain Walker assembled his crew on the bridge once they were underway. "We don't know what we'll find out there," he told them, his voice steady despite the uncertainty ahead. "But we know someone needs help. That's what humans do. We help." After 3 weeks of faster-than-light travel, the Horizon arrived at the coordinates. What they found shocked even the most prepared among them. A small blue-green planet orbited a yellow star, much like Earth. But the planet's night side was lit up with the fires of war. Massive ships, far larger than anything humans had built, hovered in orbit, sending down beams of energy that scorched the surface. "My God," whispered First Officer Lisa Grant. "It's a massacre." Captain Walker ordered immediate scans. "Find survivors. Find whoever sent that signal." Their sensors detected a small outpost on one of the planet's moons, shielded and hidden. When they made contact, they were answered by beings of startling beauty. Tall, slender creatures with luminescent skin that seemed to glow from within. Their eyes were large and filled with a profound sadness. "We are the Lumerians," their leader introduced himself as Tall. His voice, translated through the ship's computers, was melodious even in its desperation. "We thank you for answering our call when all hope seemed lost." The Lumerians were a peaceful race, Tal explained. They had developed art, music, and philosophy to heights humans could barely imagine. But they had never focused on weapons or war. When the Drachnid Empire arrived at their borders, they had no way to defend themselves. "They come to consume," Tal said, projecting images directly into the human crew's minds through some form of telepathy. "They strip worlds of resources, enslave populations, and move on. We are just the latest in their path of destruction." Captain Walker witnessed the horrors through the shared mental images. Cities in flames, civilians hunted for sport, children separated from parents. His jaw tightened with each new scene. "How many of your people can we evacuate?" he asked. "Too few to matter," Tal replied. "But we do not ask you to save just us. We ask for your help to save all who will fall to the Drachnids if they are not stopped." Walker made his decision instantly. "We'll take your diplomats back to Earth. The United Earth Council needs to see this firsthand." As the Horizon prepared for departure, Walker watched the continuing bombardment of the Lumerian homeworld. He had seen enough wars on Earth to recognize genocide when he saw it. "Record everything," he ordered his crew. "Earth needs to understand what's happening here." 3 days later, with 6 Lumerian diplomats aboard, the Horizon jumped back toward Earth. Behind them, a world burned. Ahead of them, humanity would soon face a choice that would define its place in the galaxy. The distress signal had been answered, but the real response was yet to come. The main hall of the United Earth Council buzzed with tense voices. Captain Walker stood at attention before the semicircle of world leaders, his uniform crisp despite his exhaustion. Beside him, the 6 Lumerian diplomats waited silently, their soft glow dimmed by the harsh lights. "You're asking Earth to go to war with an alien empire we know almost nothing about," said President Garcia, her voice firm. "Billions of lives could be at risk." Admiral Elena Reyes stepped forward. Her weathered face bore the scars of Earth's unification wars, reminders of battles fought and won. "With respect, Madam President, billions of lives are already at risk, just not human ones." The room fell silent. "I've reviewed Captain Walker's reports," Admiral Rice continued. "The Drachnids aren't stopping with the Lumerians. They're consuming worlds, one after another. It's only a matter of time before they find us." The Lumerian named Tal moved to the center of the room. "If I may," he said softly, "my people wish to share what words cannot express." With the Council's permission, Tal raised his hands. The lights dimmed, and suddenly every person in the room gasped. Through some form of telepathy, they all saw, no felt, the horror of the Drachnid attacks. Children screaming as they watched parents die. Cities that had stood for thousands of years reduced to ash. A culture of beauty and knowledge being systematically erased. When the vision ended, many council members had tears streaming down their faces. "This happened to my grandfather's people," said Representative Johnson, his voice breaking. "We said, never again after the genocides of our past. Did we mean it, or were they just empty words?" Defense Minister Lai shook his head. "We must be practical. Our fleet is impressive by our standards, but we have no idea how it compares to these Drachnids." A young man with sharp eyes and a determined face stood up from the advisors section. Thomas Reed, a junior diplomat who rarely spoke at such high-level meetings, held up a data tablet. "Excuse my interruption, but this can't wait," he said. "Our deep space probes detected Drachnid scout ships at the edge of our solar system 3 days ago." The room erupted in shock. "They left quickly," Reed continued, "but they were definitely scanning us. According to the Lumerian data, this is exactly how the Drachnids begin their conquest process. Quiet observation before sudden attack." Admiral Rice's face hardened. "Then we don't have the luxury of debate. We can fight them there, on our terms, or wait until they come here with their full strength." President Garcia stood up slowly. Her eyes moved from face to face around the room. "We will vote," she said. "But first, let me remind you all of our history. Humanity has often stood by while atrocities happened, saying it wasn't our problem. Each time, we promised to do better. Now, an innocent species has asked for our help, and it seems our own safety is also at stake." The vote took less than 5 minutes. The decision was overwhelming. "Let the record show," announced President Garcia, "that the United Earth Council has voted to intervene on behalf of the Lumerian people and to oppose the Drachnid Empire with all our strength." She turned to Admiral Reyes. "Begin full military mobilization immediately." Reyes saluted sharply. "The fleet will be ready within 2 weeks, Madam President." Captain Walker watched as the council members dispersed, their faces set with new purpose. The Lumerians approached him, their eyes shining with something he hadn't seen before. "Hope. You should know," Walker told them quietly, "that humanity has never been fully united until now. We've always fought among ourselves. But now we will fight for you." Tal placed a gentle hand on Walker's shoulder. "We asked for help, Captain. We never imagined you would offer us everything." As the room emptied, Admiral Reyes approached Walker. "Report to the Thunderchild tomorrow, Captain. You'll be leading the Vanguard mission." Outside, the news was spreading across Earth. In shipyards around the planet, work shifts doubled. Recruitment centers filled with volunteers. Supply ships began loading for the long journey ahead. Humanity was going to war. The massive dreadnought Thunderchild moved silently through space, leading the United Earth Defense Fleet toward Lumerian territory. Captain Walker stood on the bridge beside Admiral Reyes, watching as 50 of humanity's most powerful warships emerged from faster-than-light travel. "All ships report ready, Admiral," said the communications officer. Admiral Reyes nodded, her face grim but determined. "Open a channel to all frequencies. Let's see if these drachnids can be reasoned with before we show them what humanity is capable of." The view screen flickered to life, showing the edge of Lumerian space. In the distance, massive black ships circled a small moon colony like sharks around wounded prey. "Attention Drachnid forces," Admiral Reyes spoke clearly. "This is Admiral Elena Reyes of the United Earth Defense Fleet. We have come at the request of the Lumerian people. We demand you cease your attacks and withdraw from Lumerian space immediately." For several long moments, there was only silence. Then the screen filled with a face that made several bridge officers step back. The Drachnid commander had gray, scale-like skin stretched tight over a skull-like face. His eyes were black pits that seemed to absorb light. "I am High General Vox of the glorious Drachnid Empire," the alien hissed. "You trespass in territory claimed by the Empire. Your species is unknown to us. Leave now, and you may be permitted to exist for a while longer." Admiral Reyes didn't flinch. "The Lumerians have asked for our help, and we have answered. This is your final warning. Withdraw or face the consequences." High General Vox's mouth stretched into what might have been a smile. "No species has challenged the Drachnid Empire in 500 years. Your extinction will be educational." The transmission cut off. Immediately, the massive Drachnid ships turned toward the human fleet. "They're powering weapons," reported the tactical officer. "Reading energy signatures unlike anything we've seen before." Admiral Rice's voice was steel. "Battle stations. All ships, defensive formation Delta. Return fire only when fired upon." The first Drachnid energy blast streaked across space, striking the human destroyer Courage. To the Drachnid's visible surprise, the ship's shields flared bright blue but held. "Fire at will," ordered Admiral Reyes. The human fleet erupted with firepower. Rail guns launched projectiles at incredible speeds. Laser arrays cut through the darkness. Missile swarms created webs of destruction that the larger Drachnid ships couldn't evade. On the Thunderchild's bridge, officers watched in tense silence as the battle unfolded. The Drachnids had numbers, but the human ships were faster and more maneuverable. "They're confused by our tactics," Captain Walker observed. "Look, they're trying to form a line, but our ships are breaking their formation." A junior officer approached with a datapad. "Captain, we're detecting Lumerian life signs on that moon colony. They're still alive, but the Drachnids are landing troops." Walker turned to Admiral Reyes. "Request permission to lead a rescue mission." Reyes hesitated only a moment. "Granted. Take the Swift and 2 escort ships. Bring those people home, Captain." The small, fast shuttle Swift broke away from the main battle, accompanied by 2 fighter ships. Captain Walker and a team of 20 Marines raced toward the moon colony while the space battle raged behind them. "Stay sharp," Walker told his team as they approached. "We don't know what these Drachnid ground forces are capable of." They soon found out. The human Marines encountered Drachnid soldiers twice their size, wielding energy weapons that could melt through standard armor. But the humans had speed and adaptability on their side, and a determination that seemed to confuse the Drachnids. "They don't understand why we're fighting so hard for aliens we just met," said Lieutenant Park as she reloaded her weapon. "They can't comprehend it." After 2 hours of intense fighting, Walker's team reached the Lumerian shelter. 300 survivors huddled in fear. "We're here to take you home," Walker told them. Back in space, the battle had reached a turning point. Several Drachnid ships were damaged or destroyed, while the human fleet had lost only 2 vessels. On his flagship, High General Vox watched in disbelief as his forces were pushed back for the first time in his long career. "What are these humans?" he demanded of his officers. "How do they fight like this?" No one had an answer, but Vox made a silent vow as he ordered a strategic retreat. This was only the beginning. 3 months after the first battle, Earth had changed. Factories that once made cars now built spacecraft parts. Schools taught Lumerian language and culture. The first Lumerian refugees had settled on Earth colonies, sharing their knowledge and art in exchange for safety. Admiral Reyes stood before a holographic map showing the spread of human forces across Lumerian space. Red markers indicated Drachnid strongholds, while blue showed human positions. The blue was spreading. "We've pushed them back from 6 systems," she told the United Earth Council. "But make no mistake, this is just the beginning. The Drachnids are bringing reinforcements from deeper in their territory." President Garcia nodded grimly. "And our losses? 17 ships destroyed, 32 damaged, 843 personnel killed in action." Admiral Rice's voice was steady, but her eyes revealed the weight of each number. "The Drachnids have lost far more, but they seem willing to sacrifice thousands of troops without hesitation." On the front lines, Captain Walker had seen this firsthand. Now commanding the newly built destroyer Defiance, he led a squadron patrolling the border of reclaimed Lumerian space. His crew was a mix of veterans from the first battle and fresh recruits eager to join the fight. Contact at bearing 047 called out his sensor officer. "Looks like a small Drachnid scout ship." Walker nodded. "Pursue, but don't engage unless they fire first. I want to see where they're going." The Defiance followed the scout ship to a small asteroid field where it docked with a hidden facility built into the largest asteroid. Walker ordered passive scans only. "It's some kind of research station," reported his science officer. "I'm detecting life signs. Hundreds of them. Not all Drachnid." Walker's face hardened. "Prepare a boarding team. We're going to take a closer look." Hours later, Walker stood in the captured facility, his stomach churning at what they had found. Cages lined the walls, filled with Lumerians and other alien species he didn't recognize. Many showed signs of horrific experiments. "They were studying pain responses," said Dr. Mason, the ship's chief medical officer, her voice shaking. "Testing weapons, biological agents, methods of breaking resistance." Walker touched his communicator. "This is Walker to Admiral Reyes. You need to see this. We've found evidence that changes everything." Back on Earth, the images from the research facility shocked the public. What had begun as an intervention to help the Lumerians transformed into something deeper, a moral crusade against an enemy that represented everything humanity had fought to overcome in its own history. Recruitment centers couldn't process volunteers fast enough. Production quotas doubled, then tripled. Scientists worked around the clock studying captured Drachnid technology. In her office, Admiral Reyes finalized the plans for a new offensive. Operation Thunderstrike, she explained to her commanders. A series of rapid strikes deep into their supply lines. Cut them off, then take them apart piece by piece. On the Drachnid homeworld, High General Vox faced his superiors with growing frustration. "These humans fight like nothing we've ever seen," he told the Emperor's Council. "They adapt to our tactics. They protect even alien civilians at risk to themselves. They show mercy to prisoners, yet fight with unmatched ferocity in battle." "You sound as if you admire them," accused one council member. "I understand them," Vox corrected. "And that makes them more dangerous. They aren't fighting for territory or resources. They're fighting for ideals." He paused. "And they're inspiring others. 3 of our subject worlds have reported uprisings since the humans arrived. Across the stars, the war spread. Human special forces trained Lumerian resistance fighters. Drachnid supply ships disappeared in carefully orchestrated ambushes. The first human colonies in Lumerian space became forward bases, where human and Lumerian children played together while their parents built weapons of war." Captain Walker stood at the viewport of his ship, watching as a fleet of new Earth vessels emerged from faster-than-light travel to join the growing armada. "We asked for help," said Tal, who now served as liaison aboard the Defiance. "Your people gave us so much more." Walker's eyes remained fixed on the stars. "The Drachnids wanted war. Now they'll learn what happens when humanity fights with its full strength. What had begun as a response to a distress call had become the largest conflict the galaxy had ever known. And humanity was just getting started. 8 months into the war, the human fleet gathered above a reclaimed Lumerian world. The planet below, once burning with Drachnid bombardment, now showed signs of recovery. Gardens were being replanted, buildings slowly rebuilt. On the bridge of the Thunderchild, Admiral Rice watched her officers with pride. They had changed since the war began, hardened, focused, but still holding onto the humanity that separated them from their enemy. The new Phantom drive systems have been installed on all scout ships, reported Commander Wilson, head of engineering. We've tested them 3 times. The Drachnids can't detect them. Reyes nodded. And the intelligence team. Lieutenant Alex Morgan stepped forward. A small, quiet officer with sharp eyes, Morgan had quickly proven herself as the fleet's most effective special operations leader. "My team is ready, Admiral," she said. "We can infiltrate the Drachnid command vessel during the chaos of the main attack. If their security is what we think it is, we should be able to extract their complete battle plans and fleet positions." For the first time in months, Reyes allowed herself a small smile. "Then we move tomorrow." The next day, the human fleet engaged the Drachnid forces in the Ceres system. As the battle raged, drawing all attention, Lieutenant Morgan's team slipped behind enemy lines in a ship that Drachnid sensors couldn't see. "They still think technology will save them," Morgan told her team as they prepared to board the massive Drachnid command ship. "They haven't learned that it's not about the weapons. It's about who uses them." The boarding action was swift and precise. While the Drachnids focused on the larger battle, Morgan's team moved through their command ship like ghosts. They downloaded critical intelligence, planted tracking devices, and were gone before the Drachnids knew they had been there. The intelligence they brought back changed everything. "Look at these fleet movements," Admiral Rice told her command staff, pointing to the stolen Drachnid battle plans. "They're stretched thin. High General Vox has been recalled to their homeworld to answer for his failures. Captain Walker studied the data, and his replacement is making mistakes. Look at these defensive positions. They're leaving gaps." The human fleet began a new series of attacks, striking precisely where the Drachnids were weakest. Systems fell back into Lumerian control one by one. For the first time, the Drachnids were retreating not by choice, but by necessity. Then came an unexpected development. A small ship arrived at the human fleet's position, carrying representatives from 5 different alien species. They requested an urgent meeting with Admiral Reyes. "We have watched your war against the Drachnids," said their leader, a tall being with 4 arms and silver skin. "For centuries, our peoples have been conquered and enslaved by the Empire. None dared to resist, until you showed it was possible. The aliens proposed an alliance, the Unified Species Coalition. They offered intelligence, supply routes through their territories, and fighters eager to join the human cause. We have few warships," the alien leader admitted. "The Drachnids made sure of that. But we have knowledge of their systems that even your spies cannot obtain." Admiral Reyes accepted their offer immediately. "This war isn't just for humans or Lumerians," she told them. "It's for every species that wants to live free." On the Drachnid homeworld, High General Vox faced the Emperor's wrath. "You have failed," the Emperor hissed, his ancient face twisted with rage. "These humans should have been crushed months ago." "You don't understand what we're facing," Vox argued. "They fight differently. They inspire others. Already our subject worlds are rising up." "Enough." The Emperor silenced him. "You are relieved of command. General Kraz will replace you. He will show these humans what true Drachnid power means." But as Vox left the Emperor's chamber, he knew something the Emperor refused to see. For the first time in the Empire's long history, they were facing an enemy they couldn't simply overwhelm. An enemy that adapted faster than they could. An enemy that fought not just with weapons, but with ideas. In her quarters aboard the Thunderchild, Admiral Rice studied the new coalition maps showing Drachnid territory. For the first time, victory seemed possible. They called for help, she whispered to herself. And they're going to get it. All of it. 1 year after the first battle, Admiral Rice stood before the largest gathering of ships the galaxy had ever seen. The main view screen of the Thunderchild showed the combined might of the unified species coalition. Over 300 vessels from 7 different species, all united under a single purpose. We've pushed the Drachnids back to their core systems, Rice told the assembled fleet commanders. But as long as their leadership remains intact, this war continues. Their forces are still attacking civilian targets. They're still destroying worlds. She activated a holographic display, showing a star system none of them had seen before. This is the Drachnid home system, Vector. For centuries, its location has been the Empire's most closely guarded secret. Thanks to the intelligence provided by our coalition partners and Lieutenant Morgan's team, we now know exactly where it is. A murmur ran through the gathered officers. I am proposing Operation Daybreak, Rice continued. A direct strike at the heart of the Drachnid Empire. Captain Walker, now commanding the advanced stealth vessel Shadowblade, listened carefully as Rice outlined the plan. His ship would lead a small team to infiltrate the Drachnid home system ahead of the main fleet. Their mission: disable the defense network that had protected the Drachnid homeworld for centuries. This will be the most dangerous mission of the war, Rice concluded. But if we succeed, we end this conflict once and for all. The Shadowblade departed that night, its phantom drive making it invisible to Drachnid sensors. Walker's crew worked in tense silence as they approached the heart of enemy territory. We're picking up massive defensive installations, reported his sensor officer. Orbital weapons platforms, minefields, patrol ships. More than we've ever seen before. Walker nodded grimly. They had centuries to build these defenses. They never imagined anyone would reach them. He turned to his communications officer. Signal the infiltration team. It's time. For 3 days, small teams of human and allied special forces worked in secret, planting explosives on key defensive installations. Lieutenant Morgan led the most critical mission, infiltrating the central command node that controlled the entire defense network. Security is heavier than expected, she whispered over the secure channel. But we're proceeding according to plan. On the Drachnid homeworld, General Kraz reported to the Emperor, unaware of the humans moving through his defense systems. The human advances have been stopped, he assured his leader. They cannot penetrate our core systems. The coalition they've formed is impressive, but ultimately futile. The ancient emperor, who had ruled for over 500 years, nodded with satisfaction. And what of the superweapons? Being prepared as we speak, Kraz replied. Once deployed, they will destroy not just the human fleet, but their home system as well. This annoyance will be ended. Neither of them knew that a Lumerian telepath, working with Morgan's team, was silently absorbing every word of their conversation. On the appointed day, Captain Walker gave the order. Throughout the Drachnid defense network, carefully placed explosives detonated simultaneously. Defense platforms went dark. Sensor arrays failed. Communication systems crashed. And through this sudden gap in the once impenetrable defenses, the coalition fleet arrived. The space above the Drachnid homeworld erupted in fire as the largest battle in galactic history began. The Drachnids, caught completely by surprise, scrambled to mount a defense. For the first time, the Emperor himself watched in growing horror as enemy ships appeared in his home system. Impossible, he whispered. No one has ever. Your Eminence, a guard interrupted. We must evacuate you immediately. The humans, they're everywhere. Deep in the royal palace, the Emperor activated an ancient terminal. Prepare my vessel, he ordered, and load the void caskets. Lieutenant Morgan, hidden nearby with her infiltration team and their Lumerian telepath, heard every word. They're trying to escape with superweapons, she reported urgently to Admiral Rice. Something called void caskets. The telepath says they can destroy entire star systems. Aboard the Thunderchild, Admiral Rice's face hardened. "Captain Walker, do you copy? You have a new priority target, the Emperor's escape vessel. At all costs, it must not leave the system." Walker's voice came back clear and determined. "Understood, Admiral. The Shadowblade is moving to intercept." The final chase had begun. The Emperor's escape vessel was unlike any ship Captain Walker had ever seen. Ancient and massive, it moved with surprising speed through the chaos of battle above the Drachnid homeworld. "All power to engines," Walker ordered. "We cannot let that ship enter faster than light travel." The Shadowblade raced after the Imperial vessel, weaving through debris and weapons fire. On the bridge of the Thunderchild, Admiral Rice watched the pursuit with growing tension. "Lieutenant Morgan, what's your status?" she asked over the secure channel. "Inside the palace with 5 team members and our Lumerian telepath," Morgan replied. "The rest of the team is creating a diversion. We've accessed the Emperor's private landing bay. If Walker can delay the launch, we can board the vessel." The battle raged across the system. Human and coalition ships engaged the Drachnid fleet with coordinated attacks that showed years of training and months of fighting together. What had begun as separate species was now a unified force. Captain Walker's voice came through the command channel. "We've damaged their engines, but they're still moving. They're heading for the planet's moon. There must be another launch facility there." Admiral Rice made her decision instantly. "Lieutenant Morgan, redirect to the moon base. Walker will keep them pinned down until you arrive." Across the system, both sides fought with everything they had. The Drachnids, defending their homeworld for the first time in their history, showed a desperation that made them even more dangerous. The coalition forces, seeing the end of the war within reach, pushed forward with renewed determination. On the moon base, the Emperor's guards rushed to prepare for his arrival. None noticed the small ship that landed quietly on the far side, or the team of special forces that moved through the shadows toward the main hangar. The Emperor's damaged vessel limped into the hangar, pursued closely by the Shadowblade. As the Imperial guards rushed to transfer the Emperor and his precious cargo, Lieutenant Morgan's team struck. "For Earth and all free worlds," Morgan shouted as her team broke cover. The battle in the hangar was brief but fierce. The Emperor's guards fought to the death, but they faced the best soldiers humanity had to offer. And they were not fighting alone. The Lumerian telepath clouded the minds of the enemy. A 4-armed coalition warrior moved with incredible speed through their ranks. In the chaos, the Emperor himself tried to activate one of the void caskets, ancient weapons of unimaginable power. Lieutenant Morgan reached him just in time, knocking the control device from his hands. "It's over," she told the ancient ruler as she secured his hands. For the first time in 500 years, the Drachnid Emperor knew defeat. Across the system, the news spread quickly. The Emperor captured. The superweapons secured. Without their leader, the Drachnid military structure began to collapse. Though pockets of resistance continued to fight, the outcome was no longer in doubt. 1 month later, representatives from all coalition species gathered on the Lumerian homeworld. The planet, once ravaged by Drachnid attacks, now showed signs of healing. New cities rose where ruins had stood. Gardens bloomed where fires had burned. Admiral Rice and Captain Walker stood with Lieutenant Morgan, as leaders from across the galaxy signed the new Galactic Concord, a framework for cooperation and mutual defense. "When we set out to help the Lumerians, I never imagined this," Walker said quietly. "Neither did we," replied Tal, now serving as the Lumerian representative to the Concord. "You came when we called. You fought when no one else would. And now, because of humanity, the galaxy will know peace." After the ceremony, Admiral Rice walked with Walker through a garden of luminescent Lumerian flowers. In the distance, human and alien children played together beneath trees that had been planted after the liberation. "Was it worth it?" Walker asked. "All the sacrifice?" Rice watched the children for a long moment before answering. "They cried for help," she said simply. "We answered. That's what humans do. On both Earth and the Lemurian homeworld, identical memorials were unveiled that day. Stone monuments bearing the names of all who had fallen in the war. And above the names, a simple inscription in every language of the coalition. When we cried for help, humanity answered. Never again will tyranny go unchallenged in this galaxy. A new age had begun. The sleek alien ship broke through Earth's atmosphere with surprising grace for its size. It was unlike anything humans had ever built, smooth silver curves that seemed to bend light around them and engines that made almost no sound. Worldwide alerts blared as defense systems tracked its descent. Ambassador Threll stood at the viewport, his 4 eyes blinking nervously. His pale blue skin glistened with a thin layer of stress sweat as he watched the blue-green planet grow larger. Behind him, the other 5 members of the Aldarian delegation waited in tense silence. "We are being hailed," the pilot announced. "Earth Defense Forces demand we identify ourselves." Threll nodded. "Tell them we come seeking help. Tell them we come in peace." On Earth, Captain James Reed of the Earth Defense Force strode into the command center, his face grim. At 42, Reed had spent half his life preparing for this moment. First contact with an alien species, but he had always imagined it would be humans venturing to the stars, not aliens coming to Earth. "What do we know?" he asked General Harris, who stood watching the main screen. "They're calling themselves Aldarians. Say they want to talk. President has authorized a meeting at the secure facility in Nevada." Reed frowned. "Just like that. Could be a trick." "Could be," Harris agreed. "That's why you're going to meet them." 6 hours later, Reed sat across from creatures that looked almost human, except for their blue skin, 4 eyes, and fingers that split at the first knuckle. Ambassador Threll spoke perfect English, thanks to translation devices they had prepared before arrival. "We have studied your species for some time," Threll explained. "We hoped never to need to reveal ourselves like this, but we have no choice. Our civilization is being systematically destroyed." Reed kept his face neutral. "By whom?" Threll touched a device on his wrist. A hologram appeared between them, showing insectoid creatures with armored exoskeletons and multiple limbs, ending in what looked like natural weapons. "The Vespid Dominion," Threll said. "They have conquered half our worlds already. They take our resources, enslave our people, and destroy any who resist." The hologram changed to show cities burning, Aldarians being herded into camps, and scenes of execution. Reed's jaw tightened as he watched. "Why come to us?" he asked when the images finally stopped. "You clearly have technology far beyond ours." "Technology isn't everything," Threll replied. "The Vespid outnumber us. They breed quickly and value conquest above all else. But most importantly, we Aldarians evolved as peaceful beings. We lack," he searched for the right word, "the warrior spirit." "And you think we have it?" Reed asked. "We know you do," Threll said. "Your history is filled with warfare. Even now, when you have achieved relative peace among your nations, you maintain powerful militaries. You train for war even in times of peace." Reed leaned back, considering. Most species would see that as a flaw. "Most species aren't being exterminated," Threll countered. "We found records of your world wars. The scale of mobilization, the speed with which you adapted your entire societies for conflict. No other species we know of does this." 3 days later, Reed stood in the White House as world leaders debated via video conference. The Aldarians had shared enough technology to prove their claims and demonstrate their advanced capabilities. "This isn't our fight," the Chinese representative argued. "We have our own problems. If these Vespid are as aggressive as the Aldarians claim, they'll eventually find Earth," Reed pointed out. "Better to fight them on someone else's turf than our own." The Russian president nodded. "Captain Reed is right. Besides, think of the technology we will gain." The debate continued for hours until finally, the United Nations Secretary-General called for a vote. The resolution passed. Earth would help the Aldarians. When Reed delivered the news, Threll's 4 eyes blinked rapidly in their version of tears. "Thank you," the ambassador said. "You have saved my people." Reed shook his head slowly. "Don't thank me yet. You asked for help, and we'll give it. But I don't think you understand what that means. When humans go to war, we don't do it halfway." "What do you mean?" Threll asked. "You're about to find out," Reed replied. "When the Vespid meet humanity, they're going to learn what total war really means." 1 month after the Eldarian delegation arrived on Earth, the United Nations Space Command was born. For the first time in human history, soldiers from every nation trained together with a single purpose: to fight an enemy among the stars. Commander Elena Vasiliev stood on the observation deck of the newly built Armstrong space station, watching as shuttles ferried troops and supplies up from Earth. At 45, with 20 years of military experience, she had been the natural choice to lead the Earth Expeditionary Force. Her dark hair was streaked with gray, and lines creased the corners of her eyes, but her gaze remained sharp as she assessed the growing fleet. "Impressive, isn't it?" Ambassador Threll said, joining her at the viewport. "Your people have accomplished in weeks what would take my kind years." Elena turned to the Eldarian. "When facing extinction, humans don't waste time with committees and debates." "But you still had them," Threll observed. "For 3 days," Elena said. "Then we got to work." Below them, in the station's massive hangar, Eldarian scientists worked alongside human engineers. The aliens provided advanced technology while humans adapted it for war. What had once been civilian ships were being fitted with weapons based on Eldarian designs, but modified by human military minds. In another section of the station, intelligence officer Marcus Taylor studied Vespid battle footage. The insectoid aliens moved with frightening speed, their natural armor deflecting most Eldarian weapons. But every enemy had a weakness. "There," he said, freezing a frame. "The joint between the thorax and abdomen. Their armor is thinner there." His team of analysts made notes. They had been working around the clock, learning everything they could about the enemy they would soon face. "Their ships are faster than anything we have," one analyst said. "Speed isn't everything," Marcus replied. "We don't need to outrun them. We just need to hit them where it hurts." On Earth, factories that once built cars now produced armor and weapons. Farmland was expanded to grow extra food. Children practiced emergency drills in schools. The entire planet prepared for war in a way not seen since the 1940s. Ambassador Threll watched all of this with growing concern. He had expected humans to send a small force, professional soldiers on a peacekeeping mission. Instead, they were mobilizing their entire civilization. "Is this normal?" he asked Captain Reed as they toured a training facility where thousands of soldiers practiced urban combat. Reed nodded. "This is how humans wage war." "But you haven't even met the Vespid yet," Threll said. "Doesn't matter," Reed replied. "If we're going to fight, we prepare to win. At any cost." The words chilled Threll to his core. 2 months into preparation, alarm sirens blared across the Armstrong station. A Vespid scout ship had been detected near Jupiter, observing human activities. "This is our chance," Commander Vasiliev told her officers. "Capture that ship intact." A small strike team led by Captain Reed launched in a stealth vessel, using Jupiter's magnetic field for cover. The operation was quick and brutal. 3 humans died, but they secured the Vespid ship along with 2 live prisoners and a wealth of intelligence. "Their tech is impressive," Marcus told Commander Vasiliev as they examined the captured ship. "But their tactics are predictable. They rely too much on strength and speed." "Pride," Vasiliev said. "They've conquered so many worlds they think they're invincible." "That will be their downfall," Marcus agreed. On the day the Earth fleet prepared to launch, Commander Vasiliev addressed the 30,000 soldiers under her command. Their faces filled screens throughout the armada of ships. "We go to fight an enemy that believes itself superior to all life in the galaxy," she said. They have never faced humans before. They have never experienced total war. We do not fight only to win battles. We fight to end wars. To the Vespid who have brutalized the Eldarians, and who now threaten Earth, your dominion ends today. As the fleet prepared to depart, Ambassador Threll approached Captain Reed one last time. "We asked for help," the Eldarian said quietly. "I fear we've unleashed something we don't understand." Reed's expression was grim. "You wanted warriors. That's what you're getting." The first human warfleet in history activated their Eldarian-enhanced engines and vanished into the depths of space, carrying with them humanity's answer to the Vespid threat. The Eldarian colony world of Niven 4 hung in space like a bruised fruit. Once a beautiful green-blue planet, it now bore the scars of Vespid occupation. Massive mining operations had torn open the surface, and dark smoke rose from processing facilities, where Eldarian prisoners worked until they died. In orbit around the planet, 7 Vespid warships patrolled. Their insect-like design reflected their creators, all sharp angles and deadly efficiency. The Vespid believed the system was secure. They were wrong. Human ships emerged from hyperspace at precisely calculated points around the planet. Unlike the sleek Eldarian vessels or the angular Vespid craft, Earth's warships were blocky and practical. Their hulls were covered with weapons, some adapted from Eldarian technology, others purely human in design. On the bridge of the flagship _Retribution _, Commander Vasiliev watched the enemy ships with cold eyes. "All vessels report ready, Commander," her communications officer said. "Operation Thunderclap is go." "Begin," Vasiliev ordered. The human fleet opened fire simultaneously. They had studied Vespid shield configurations for weeks and knew exactly where to hit. 3 enemy ships exploded before they could even raise alarms. "Ground teams deploy now," Vasiliev commanded. Across the human fleet, dropships launched toward the planet's surface. Lieutenant Anna Reyes sat with her squad, checking her weapon one last time. The former Mexican Special Forces soldier had trained her people hard for this moment. "Remember," she told them, "the Vespid have never faced humans before. They expect their enemies to follow rules. We don't play by their rulebook." The dropship shuddered as it entered atmosphere. Around them, other ships were being shot down by ground defenses. Rise watched through the viewport as one exploded in midair. 10 seconds to landing," the pilot shouted. They hit the ground hard. The doors blew open, and Rise led her squad into hell. The Vespid ground forces were as terrifying as the intelligence reports had described. Standing over 7 feet tall, with natural armor and multiple arms ending in wicked claws, they moved with frightening speed. But they had never faced human weapons before. Rise fired her rifle, the special ammunition designed by Marcus Taylor's team, punching through Vespid armor at the weak points they had identified. The alien let out a high-pitched shriek as it fell. "Move toward the camp," Rise ordered. Her squad advanced through the Vespid defenses, using tactics the aliens had never encountered. Where Eldarians fought in orderly formations, humans used cover, misdirection, and ambush. Where Eldarians retreated when outnumbered, humans charged. The fighting was brutal. Rise lost 3 soldiers in the first hour, but they reached the camp where thousands of Eldarians were held prisoner. "We're from Earth," she told the first blue-skinned alien she encountered. "We're here to free you." The Eldarian stared at her with 4 wide eyes. "Earth?" The humans came. "Yes," Rise said, cutting the restraints from a group of prisoners. "Now help us free the others." In orbit above, the space battle had turned into a slaughter. Vespid reinforcements arrived only to be caught in Commander Vasiliev's carefully planned trap. Marcus Taylor's intelligence had been perfect. The Vespid ships were faster and more heavily armed, but their captains were predictable, using the same tactics that had worked against the Eldarians. "They're retreating, Commander," Vasiliev's tactical officer reported. 2 enemy ships escaping to hyperspace. "Let them go," Vasiliev ordered. "I want them to tell their leaders what happened here." By nightfall, Neven 4 was secured. Over 4,000 Eldarians had been freed from labor camps. The cost had been high. 327 humans dead, hundreds more wounded. But the victory was total. Ambassador Threll, who had accompanied the fleet, walked through the main camp where the rescued Eldarians gathered. They looked at the humans with a mixture of gratitude and fear. "I had no idea," Threll said to Captain Reed. "The way your people fight." "This is just the beginning," Reed replied. "The Vespid wanted an enemy. Now they've got one." Across the galaxy, news of the battle spread. Species that had bowed to Vespid rule for generations began to whisper a new word: human. In the heart of Vespid territory, the High Commander received the reports from Neven 4 with disbelief. These humans, it chittered to its council. What kind of species fights like this? No one had an answer. But soon, they would all learn. The Vespid High Commander stood before the holographic display, its mandibles clicking with rage. 6 more colony worlds had fallen to the humans in the past month. No other species had ever inflicted such losses on the Dominion. These creatures must be exterminated, it declared to the War Council. Divert the 3rd and 4th fleets. Find their homeworld. On the liberated Eldarian world of Tarvis, Dr. Thomas Wilson worked day and night with a team of Eldarian scientists. The humans had provided a temporary military base, while the former prisoners rebuilt their cities. Wilson, a linguist and codebreaker, had been trying to crack the Vespid communication system for weeks. "There's a pattern here," he told his Eldarian colleague. "Their language uses frequency shifts, not just words." The blue-skinned alien adjusted her translation device. "Like music?" "Exactly," Wilson said. "They're singing to each other." Their breakthrough came just in time. The devices they built could now intercept and translate Vespid communications. What they heard chilled them. "They're going to attack Earth," Wilson told Commander Vasiliev via holographic link. 2 massive fleets are already moving." Vasiliev's face showed no emotion, but her voice was steel. "How long do we have?" 3 days at most. "We'll never get back in time," Captain Reed said from beside Vasiliev. "No," she agreed, "but Earth isn't defenseless." Back on Earth, the warning triggered an emergency response. Orbital defense platforms that had been under construction were rushed into service. Military units worldwide moved to defensive positions. Civilians headed to underground shelters built during the frantic months of preparation. When the Vespid fleets arrived, they expected to find a primitive world easy to conquer. Instead, they met a planet bristling with weapons. The battle for Earth lasted 14 hours. The Vespid had numbers and technology on their side, but humans were fighting for their home. The orbital platforms took a terrible toll on the alien ships. When the bugs landed troops, they faced not just soldiers but armed civilians fighting block by block. In low Earth orbit, a young lieutenant named Peter Dawson commanded the last functioning defense platform. Half his crew was dead, and oxygen was running low. "Target their command ship," he ordered. "Full power to the main gun." The massive energy weapon fired one last time before the platform's reactors failed. The beam cut through the Vespid flagship, sending it tumbling toward Earth's atmosphere where it burned up like a second sun. The remaining Vespid ships retreated, but the victory came at a terrible cost. Cities around the world lay in ruins. Millions were dead. The space around Earth was filled with debris from destroyed ships and stations. Meanwhile, Commander Vasiliev had not been idle. Learning of the attack on Earth, she implemented what she called Protocol Scorched Earth. Human forces struck deep into Vespid territory, hitting supply bases and shipyards. They didn't try to hold ground. They simply destroyed everything and moved on. Lieutenant Reyes and her squad found themselves trapped behind enemy lines on the contested world of Karek. They had been conducting sabotage operations when their extraction ship was shot down. "We need to keep moving," Reyes told her remaining 6 soldiers. "If we stay in one place, they'll find us." For 8 days, they moved only at night, destroying Vespid facilities and ambushing patrols. They became ghosts, striking from nowhere and vanishing before reinforcements arrived. The Vespid put a price on Rhea's head, calling her the Night Demon. As the war expanded, other species began to join the human-led coalition. Races that had suffered under Vespid rule for generations saw a chance for freedom. In the Dominion's central hive system, the High Commander faced growing unrest among its own kind. "These humans do not fight like rational beings," it told the War Council. "They sacrifice themselves willingly. They attack targets of no strategic value. They destroy resources they could use." An older council member's antennae twitched nervously. "Perhaps we made a mistake challenging them." "It is too late for such thoughts," the High Commander replied. "We either destroy them completely, or they will never stop until they destroy us." Across the stars, the war grew. 6 months into the war, Intelligence Officer Marcus Taylor stood in a dark underground chamber on the Aldarian homeworld. His flashlight beam played across strange symbols carved into the walls. Behind him, a team of human archaeologists carefully documented everything. "How old did you say this place was?" he asked the Aldarian guide. "Over 20,000 years, the blue-skinned alien replied. "From before our great peace." Taylor had been following a trail of odd references in captured Vespid communications. They kept mentioning the buried threat when discussing Aldarian worlds. Now he understood why. The chamber was a weapons vault. Not just any weapons, planet killers. "Your people built these?" Taylor asked, his voice tight. The Aldarian looked away. It was a different time. 2 days later, Taylor presented his findings to Commander Vasiliev and Captain Reed. The holographic images floating between them showed ancient but terrifyingly advanced weapons. "The Aldarians weren't always peaceful," Taylor explained. "According to what we found, they once ruled half the galaxy with these weapons. They could destroy entire planets." Reed's face darkened, and Ambassador Threll never mentioned this. "I think it's time we had a talk with our allies," Vasiliev said. When confronted, Ambassador Threll's 4 eyes blinked rapidly in distress. There was no point in denying the truth anymore. "Yes," he admitted. "Long ago, the Aldarian Empire was feared throughout the galaxy. We used these weapons to force other species to submit." "And the Vespid?" Reed demanded. "Were one of our slave races," Threll said quietly. "When our empire fell and we embraced peace, most species forgave us. The Vespid never did. Their attack on us wasn't random. It was revenge, thousands of years in the making." The revelation spread through human command like wildfire. They had thought they were helping innocent victims. Now they weren't so sure. "Does this change anything?" General Harris asked during an emergency meeting with Earth's leaders. "Everything," said some voices. "Nothing," said others. The debate raged until Commander Vasiliev spoke up from her video link. "With respect," she said, "it doesn't matter who did what thousands of years ago. The Vespid attacked Earth. They killed millions of our people. We finish what we started." Her words cut through the argument like a knife. Meanwhile, the Vespid had launched a surprising diplomatic initiative. A message was broadcast on all frequencies, in all known languages. "Humans of Earth," the translation began, "you have been deceived. The Aldarians are not victims but former tyrants who built weapons that could destroy all life. We fought them to contain this threat. Join us, and we will spare your world." Lieutenant Reyes, now commanding a mixed unit of humans and allied aliens on the front lines, watched the message with her team. "That's their play," one of her soldiers asked. "They think we'll switch sides because the Aldarians weren't perfect." Reyes shrugged. "Bugs don't understand humans very well." On Earth, opinion was divided. Some argued for ending the war and negotiating with the Vespid. Others pointed out that the bugs had attacked Earth unprovoked, regardless of ancient history. Captain Reed found himself defending the mission to a panel of political leaders. "Yes, the Aldarians lied by omission," he acknowledged. "And yes, the Vespid have legitimate grievances from their past. But we're not fighting for ancient history. We're fighting because they brought war to our doorstep. The debate was interrupted by urgent news. A Vespid officer had defected, bringing crucial intelligence. A high command is losing control, the defector told human interrogators. Many Vespid believe this war was a mistake, but the High Commander and the Inner Circle are preparing something terrible. The defector provided coordinates for the Vespid Central Command Structure, a massive station hidden deep in their territory. Commander Vasiliev studied the intelligence with growing concern. They're gathering ships there. Thousands of them. For what? Reed asked. A final strike. I think, she replied. One last desperate attempt to crush us. As humans debated morality and history, the Vespid prepared for the biggest battle of the war. And deep in Aldarian ruins, Dr. Wilson discovered something that would change everything. The true purpose of the ancient weapons. They weren't just planet killers. He told Taylor over a secure channel. They were designed to close dimensional rifts. Taylor frowned. What does that mean? I don't know, Wilson admitted, but I think we're fighting the wrong enemy. Commander Vasiliev stood before the holographic display of Vespid Prime, the hidden command center of the Dominion. Around her, the captains of 20 human warships listened intently. This will be our most dangerous mission yet, she said. While the main fleet creates diversions across these 6 systems, a small team will infiltrate the command station itself. Captain Reed studied the rotating image. Their defenses are massive, which is why they won't expect a direct assault. Vasiliev replied. Your stealth team will use this approach vector, masked by the radiation from the nearby pulsar. Reed nodded grimly. Who's on the team? You, Intelligence Officer Taylor, and the Aldarian guy Kale. Kale was no ordinary Aldarian. Before the war, he had been an archaeologist studying ancient ruins. Now his knowledge of the old weapons might be humanity's only hope. 3 days later, Reed's small stealth ship slipped past the Vespid defense grid. The massive station loomed before them, a structure the size of Earth's moon, bristling with weapons. I've never seen anything like it, Taylor whispered as they docked in an abandoned maintenance bay. Focus on the mission, Reed reminded him. We find the command center, plant the beacons for the fleet, and get out. They moved through dark corridors, avoiding Vespid patrols. The station seemed strangely empty for its size. Something's wrong, Kale said, his 4 eyes scanning the shadows. There should be millions of Vespid here. They found their answer in a vast chamber at the heart of the station. Thousands of Vespid hung suspended in strange organic pods, thin tubes connecting their bodies to a central pulsing mass. What are we looking at? Reed asked, his hand tight on his weapon. Taylor used his scanner. Those Vespid are alive, but their brain waves are synchronized. Like a hive mind, Kale suggested. No, Taylor said slowly. More like they're being controlled. The central mass shifted, and an eye, larger than a human, opened to stare at them. The thing was like nothing they had ever seen, a writhing collection of tentacles and mouths surrounding that massive eye. You are interesting, a voice echoed directly in their minds. No species has ever fought the Vespid so effectively. Reed aimed his weapon at the eye. Who are you? We have no name you could pronounce, the entity replied. We come from what you would call another dimension. Your universe is delicious. Understanding dawned on Taylor's face. The dimensional rifts Wilson discovered. You're coming through them. Yes, the voice hissed in their minds. The Aldarians once threatened our feeding. Their weapons closed our ways into this reality. We have spent millennia working to return, using the Vespid as our hands. Outside the station, the diversionary attacks had begun. Commander Vasiliev led the largest fleet battle in human history, drawing Vespid forces away from their base. Lieutenant Reyes and her Special Forces team had landed on the station's outer hull. Their job was to disable the external defenses. Cut through here, she ordered, pointing to a maintenance hatch. We have 20 minutes before they realize we're not debris from the battle. As her team worked, Rise looked out at the chaos. Hundreds of ships exchanged fire, their weapons lighting up space like fireworks. Deep inside the station, Reed's team fought their way to the ancient Aldarian weapon they had brought, a device stolen from one of the ruins. Cale worked frantically to activate it while Reed and Taylor held off waves of Vespid guards. "The rifts are already opening across the galaxy," Cale shouted over the gunfire. "If we don't close them now, everything will be consumed." Reed took a hit to his shoulder but kept firing. "How much longer?" "Minutes," Cale replied. "But someone needs to stay and make sure it completes the sequence." Reed and Taylor exchanged looks. They both knew what that meant. On the command ship, Commander Vasiliev received Taylor's transmission. "The Vespid are being controlled by interdimensional entities," his voice crackled. "The true enemy isn't the bugs, it's what's controlling them." "Can you stop it?" she asked. "Yes," Taylor replied. "But we'll need to detonate the station. Captain Reed is staying behind to ensure the weapon activates." Vasiliev closed her eyes briefly. "Understood. We'll create your exit window." She turned to her officers. "All ships, full assault on the station's north quadrant. Give them a path out." The human fleet surged forward, taking heavy losses, but punching through the Vespid defenses. The battle for the fate of the galaxy had reached its climax. The dimensional rifts tore open across the galaxy like wounds in reality itself. Through them poured strange energies and shadowy tentacles reaching for the stars. On a dozen worlds, people looked up to see their skies split with impossible colors. Inside the Vespid command station, Captain Reed worked furiously to complete the activation sequence for the ancient Aldarian weapon. Blood seeped from his wounded shoulder, but he ignored the pain. "The last transport is leaving," Taylor said from the doorway. "We need to go now." Reed didn't look up from the control panel. "Get Cale out of here. I'll finish this." "James." "That's an order, Marcus," Reed said firmly. "Someone has to make sure this thing goes off. The controls are damaged. It needs manual operation." Taylor hesitated, then clasped Reed's uninjured shoulder. "It's been an honor, Captain." "Tell them I did my duty," Reed replied. "Now go." As Taylor and Cale raced for the last escape pod, Lieutenant Reyes and what remained of her team provided covering fire against waves of Vespid guards. "Move it," she shouted, tossing her last grenade to slow the enemy advance. "We've got 30 seconds." The escape pod launched just as more Vespid troops flooded the hangar. From the tiny viewport, Taylor watched the massive station grow smaller as they sped away. In orbit around the station, Commander Vasiliev's fleet fought with desperate intensity. Half her ships were gone, but the remaining vessels formed a protective corridor for the escaping human forces. "All ships, prepare for emergency jump," she ordered. "On my mark." Deep in the station, Reed sat alone before the ancient weapon. The voice of the dimensional entity echoed in his mind. "Your species is so strange," it said. "Why sacrifice yourself for others?" Reed smiled grimly. "Because that's what humans do." He pressed the final sequence. The Aldarian device hummed to life, glowing with blue energy that spread throughout the station. "This won't stop us," the entity hissed. "We will find another way." "Maybe," Reed admitted, "but not today." The station exploded in a blinding flash that rippled outward, catching many Vespid ships before they could escape. But the energy didn't stop there. It spread in waves across the galaxy, sealing the dimensional rifts one by one. As the rifts closed, the Vespid troops everywhere suddenly stopped fighting. Without the controlling influence of the dimensional beings, they seemed confused, lost. 3 weeks later, representatives from Earth, the Aldarian worlds, and the now-free Vespid gathered on the neutral world of Terris. Ambassador Threll stood before the assembly, his 4 eyes somber. "For thousands of years, my people hid from our past," he said. "We chose peace because we feared what we had once been. But we never truly made amends for the harm we caused." The Vespid representative, its mandibles now painted with symbols of mourning, clicked a response. And for thousands of years, my people sought revenge without understanding we were being used by a greater evil. Commander Vasiliev spoke next. Earth entered this war believing we were helping innocent victims. We learned that the galaxy is more complex than that, but in the end, we all faced a common enemy. The new Galactic Council formed that day, with Earth as a founding member. The knowledge and technology shared between the species would usher in a new era of peace and cooperation. 1 month later, on a hilltop overlooking the rebuilt city of New Sydney, Commander Vasiliev stood before a simple stone monument. Carved into its surface were the names of all who had fallen in the war, with Captain James Reed's name at the top. Ambassador Threll joined her, holding a wreath of blue Aldarian flowers. "When we begged for help," he said quietly, "we never imagined the price would be so high." Vasiliev watched the sunset paint the sky crimson. "That's the thing about humans and total war, Ambassador. We don't count the cost until after the battle is won." "Will your people ever forgive mine for the deception?" Threll asked. "Forgiveness takes time," she replied. "But understanding is a start." Across the galaxy, the rifts remained closed. The dimensional beings were banished back to their own reality. The war was over, but its lessons would echo through history. When humanity goes to war, they bring everything they have. And when humanity makes peace, they do that completely too.